Roll call, please.
Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Gallops.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
Schoblum.
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
Yep. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a nice, warm city council meeting. And with that, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Merle, second by Rod. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Moves us on to item 5 this evening, public input. Citizens can speak to issues not on the agenda, and seeing as there's no one here to speak, we will move on to item 6 this evening, public hearings. We'll start with Resolution 2198, certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes. Linnell?
Thank you, Mayor. This first public hearing is actually kind of a rehearing. This is from the one that we did in February, where the amounts that were listed in the resolution were actually incorrect due to the administrative charge not being added in. So based on the advice from our city attorney, he recommended that we rehold the public hearing and adjust the amounts. So that is what we're doing tonight.
So basically, we're just adding the $50 fee to the amounts that were already listed. Okay. All right, at this time, we will open the public hearing for Resolution 2198, adopting assessments of unpaid utility charges. Is there anyone wishing to address council? Is there anyone wishing to address council? Is there anyone wishing to address council? If not, at this time, we will close the public hearing, and the chair will take a motion to approve Resolution 2198, adopting the assessments of unpaid utility charges.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by
Bill.
Rod.
Too many times of doing that.
Okay, second by Rod, flashback. Anyway, motion by Merle, second by Rod. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to the Resolution 2199, which is the first quarter of this year. Resolution certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes.
Yeah, thank you. This is the public hearing then for the first quarter's listing, and with the correct numbers this time. So this would be an opportunity for anyone to speak up regarding those charges and possible assessments.
It looks like they're staying pretty steady around the same amounts from quarter to quarter. Okay. At this time, we will open the public hearing for Resolution 2199, certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes. Is there anyone wishing to address the council for Resolution 2199? Is there anyone wishing to address the council for Resolution 2199? Is there anyone wishing to address the council for Resolution 2199? Seeing as there are none, then we will move to close the public hearing at this time. And the chair will take a motion to approve Resolution 2199.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Merle, a second by Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to the consent agenda this evening. Items of this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, I'll read the consent agenda. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending April the 29th, 2016. Item B are the meeting minutes for the April 19th, 2016 City Council meeting. Item C, award the 2016 Seal Coat Project. Item D, approve Transportation Alliance fly-in expenses. Item E, National Police Week proclamation. Item F, Resolution 2200, accepting a donation from the VFW for the ambulance department. And item G, 2201, accepting a donation from Hugh and Mary McDonald for the Parks Department. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down? Seeing as there are none, Chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Merle, second by Lynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. That moves us on to the main show this evening, council business. And so we'll start that with the 2015 audit presentation by Abdo, Ike, and Myers.
Tonight we have Brad Faltasek. He is one of our auditors, our lead auditor. I'm not sure what your title is for that, but he's the one that's in charge when he comes with his team to do our audit. So he's here tonight to make his presentation.
Thanks, Linnell. Thank you, members of council, for having me here tonight. I am Brad Faltasek, as Linnell said. So you should have two reports in front of you. One's our management letter, or it's on your screen electronically. The other is the audit report itself. I'll primarily go through the management letter. There will be at least one item in the financial statements themselves I'll point out and discuss briefly with you as well. But let's first start with the management letter. It just gives a summary of the audit itself and what kind of our process was in going through the audit and the results, financial results of the audit. First page of that outlines our responsibility, and that is to give an opinion on your financial statements. We are giving you a clean or unmodified opinion on our financial statements. So as we're saying that everything in here is materially stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So come in, we didn't staff, Linnell and her staff had all the records in good order. We were able to get through the audit in very good short order this year. So thank Linnell and her staff for that, and Ron as well. So as part of arriving at that, we look though at internal controls. So we'll look at transactions that if we see a higher risk on them, those typically could be something with a higher dollar amount or something where there's a transaction that maybe one person's handling it from beginning to end. If we see any issues in there that may raise a higher risk of potential error or fraud, we report those to you in this management letter. If there was fraud, there'd be other processes we'd go through, but if it was something that just a higher risk that we didn't see any fraud, that's where we'd report it to you as a finding in here. We aren't reporting any findings other than the standard one, the preparation of the financial statements. And that is just because we prepare the financial statements as part of the audit. It is ultimately management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements and our responsibility to give an opinion on those statements. So same person giving us all the information, same person's reviewing all the information. So there's a slight internal control issue there as segregation of duties. So this is just there on page 2, it's just to really define the responsibility of management and our responsibility as auditors. So nothing to be concerned about there. We report that in probably 85% of the cities we audit. So no concerns as far as any issues that you need to be concerned with. Then on the bottom of page 2, we also, there's a paragraph about compliance issues. The state auditor's office requires us to go through 7 different checklists basically as part of our audit to make sure that you're following different statutes that they would like us to check on as part of our financial statement audit. So we go through those checklists and we aren't reporting any findings related to those as well. So clean opinion all around there. Page 3, the first paragraph there talks about any changes in accounting standards or principles. You did adopt GASB 68 and 71 this year, and that was the standard related to the pensions. And you've probably heard, and we talked about it briefly last year as well, the state the new standard that affects all governments within the United States, if they belong to a pension plan, which you belong to the state's Public Employees Retirement Association plan. If there's a unfunded liability, an actuarial unfunded liability associated with that plan, it needs to be allocated out to all the members in some reasonable method. So I'll go through with you at the end of the management letter here what that number is, but there was a substantial amount that was allocated to you based on the $5 billion deficit that was determined to have at the state's plan. Okay, but as far as what affects you in your city, because that pension plan liability really has, you can't change it, but, so what is actually affecting you, starting on page 5, this is the chart we have in here for the last 5 years. It takes a look at your end of year fund balance, compares that to the next year's budgeted expenditures. So this we want to see at least 50%, or around 50% in that. Your percentage is at 70.8%. This is your total fund balance. You do have a portion of that fund balance that's assigned for the library debt. That's about $260,000. So your unassigned fund balance that you can spend for operating expenditures is 61%, is the unassigned amount. So you're above that 50%, so you have a healthy, what we'd call healthy fund balance in your general fund. And that is slightly up from the previous year. It was 1.9 last year, and this year it's 2.1. The next page is a summary of your total revenues, total expenditures compared to the budgets. You can see your total revenues, you budgeted about $2.9 million. Your revenues came in at just over $3 million, so $125,000 or revenue more than what you had budgeted. Expenditures were $107,000 under what you had budgeted, so overall had almost a $300,000 excess revenues over expenditures. You did transfer $41,000 into general fund, as well as transferred $108,000 out for which was budgeted as part of the budget. So overall, your net change, you increased fund balance $234,000 from the previous year. At the bottom, we explain some of those differences, or those amounts under budget. With your revenue sources, your intergovernmental revenues was the biggest source that was you received over budget, and that was mostly related to a $51,000 state aid for streets that the state allotted to the cities this past year. So you received about $51,000 there. No city really had any idea that was coming, so that was just an additional $51,000 to your revenue budget that you didn't know it was coming. And then the police aid came in about $10,000 over what you'd budgeted as well. So expenditures were $36,000 under budget in administrative expenditures and legal. Public safety expenditures were under budget $67,000. So those are the biggest categories in the expenditures that were varied from budget. Page 7, here we have again, this is just your general fund, the revenues for the last 3 years by category or by source. Your taxes make up the majority of your revenues in your general fund at $1.86 million. It's good to note that about just over $500,000 of that number is coming from Invenergy, and there's 12 more years of that within the contract currently. So depending on what happens at the end of that 12 years, that is a revenue source that currently is not projected after that 12 years. So something to think about over the next few years and how that's going to be, if the contract's going to be increased or lengthened or what's going to happen. But that is $500,000 of your general fund revenue. The other big change from last year was intergovernmental revenues. That went from just right around $700,000 to $750,000. So again, a lot of that had to do with the $50,000 or small cities aid. Page 8, same thing with your expenditures. We also have, and with the revenues as well, but this I think we have a per capita number for what you spend on per resident in each one of these programs, your general government, public safety, public works. Then we have the second to last column is per capita, so we just divide the population, or divide those total expenditures by the population. So taking a look at your general government, the first line there, $172 you're spending on general government expenditures. So that'd be like administrative, accounting, those types of things, buildings, or general buildings. Your peer groups are spending about $130 per resident, so And then here we look at other cities within the 2,500 to 10,000 population range. So you're a little bit higher there. Most of the cities we work with didn't have an IT department, so that's some additional department within the general government that you had that other cities probably of your size don't have, or didn't have, or don't have, I guess. And I know that's changing for you now as well. But and then culture and rec, it's another one that you're at $105 per resident, where peer groups at 58. You do have the Cannon Valley Trail as well, that all those expenditures are within that category as well. So a lot of other cities don't have that either. So those are kind of the big differences there. If we look at total expenditures, almost 2.9 million this year, down from 3.3 the year before. A lot of that from the year before was made up of those transfers. You had almost $500,000 of transfers out last year. A lot of that went to the library. 380,000 of that was transferred to the library last year. So kind of makes up those differences from year to year. Page 9, we start getting to our other funds outside the general fund. We have our special revenue funds. These are funds that have a restricted or committed revenue source. So revenues that are coming into the city need to be spent specifically on certain items that are not debt service or capital related. So we have 3 of them: the library, cable television, and fire department. We can see your fire department went from $17,000 fund balance down to $2,000 fund or just under $3,000, so a $14,000 decrease there. The other 2, library and cable commission, increased their fund balance this past year. Then we have capital project funds. So these account for all the projects or equipment type funds you have within the city. So these, just take a look, want to make sure these are staying positive. You have 2 that are deficit right now, the Highway 20 Clinic Access Road at $137,000. No change in that from the previous year. And then the 2016 Street Improvement Fund as well. So you do have a project for 2016 that had some expenditures the previous year. So you will be bonding for that in this coming year. So that should take care of that deficit going forward. Then we have our debt service funds on the next page. So we have the 4 debt service funds listed there, and the bonds outstanding in each of them. We have total cash, total assets. The total assets, the difference between the total cash and the total assets include primarily assessments receivable. So that's why you get from the 872 total cash to the total assets of almost 2.4 million. You do also have some tax levies that are going to these funds as well. So that's why your total assets aren't enough to pay off your bonds. You do levy on an annual basis for some of these funds as well. The bottom, that chart shows your debt service expenditures for the next 10 years. So this chart does not include any enterprise, so this doesn't include any water or sewer bonds. This is just your governmental funds that are shown there above. So you can see in 2018 drops off a little bit, and then 2021. So this isn't projecting any new bonds. This is just for your current bonds outstanding. Then we get into your enterprise funds. I know last meeting, I believe you were presented a water and sewer rate study discussion. So this kind of confirms some of that information. You can see if you look at the chart on the top there, this shows your disbursements and receipts. So your receipts are on the right, and your disbursements are on the left. So ideally, we'd want to see that blue section of the receipts, that's the operating receipts, be able to be in excess of the operating expenditures, which is the gray, and the debt service expenditures, which is the green. So you can see for most years you're pretty close, but each year you are slightly under that. So would want to see that increase a little bit there. You can see though on the bottom, your 2012 to 2015 cash balances, those have stayed pretty steady at that $1.1 million mark. That red line within that chart is the minimum target. So this line is showing the minimum amount that we would recommend seeing this cash balance at, this target is different than what you're seeing in your rate study. Your rate study is taking into account future capital projects and how you're going to fund those, as well as kind of have it. That target is probably higher than this target. This is a minimum target. That's a target to meet future capital needs. So if you're seeing a difference there. Then we have our bonds outstanding, so you have just over $3 million of bonds outstanding in this fund. The disposal fund is the next page. So same thing here. Is the blue meeting the green and the gray, so the operating expenditures and the debt service expenditures. And again, slightly under in each of the years presented here. So here you can see that the minimum target, you are lower than that in each of these years presented, but the trend is increasing each year. So definitely going in the right direction. I know you adjusted some of these rates this year. So the ambulance fund on the next page. The ambulance fund, the dollars amounts on each of these are a lot less than the previous two, but the bars are still, it's just the scale is different here. So you can see the ambulance is meeting their operating receipts are meeting their operating disbursements in each of these years. So then you can see the results of that on the bottom where the cash is increasing up to $427 at the end of 2015. But I believe there's some capital that's going to be purchased out of here as well, so an ambulance. Storm water on the next page there. Here you can see 2013, you just had just under $3,000 of cash in this fund. You've built it up in the last 2 years to $214,000. Projects that happen in related to stormwater are costly and can bring this down quite a bit. So, but I believe you have some projects coming up that this money will be spent with as well. So, definitely not bad that you went from 2,800 to 214. I think that was planned to pay for some of these projects. Deputy Registrar, here we have revenues and expenditures right around that $100,000 mark. Each of the years presented. Don't have a lot of cash. A lot of the cash that comes in gets paid directly to the state, so you do keep some of it, but the cash balance does stay at a much lower level here than some of the other funds. There's nothing other than that money comes in and a lot of it goes back to the state and pay for salaries as well. But recycling fund cash flow, here's similar. We have $27,000 in cash in 2012 up to $80,000 this year. So each of these years your revenues are meeting your disbursements. So gradually moving that up about $20,000 a year. Any questions on any of that so far? We're all awake through it. The last page that I'll go through in the management letter is the ratio analysis on page 17. So here we're just taking that same peer group that we compared to your per capita numbers to in the general fund page. So we're taking a look at your ratios compared to that same peer group. So debt to assets, this is your total liabilities divided by your total assets. So the lower the number here, I guess the better. You're at 39%, your peer group's at 32%. So slightly higher here, but definitely not significantly. Your debt service coverage ratio here, like to see that at over 100%. So are your enterprise funds that have debt, are they generating enough cash to pay their debt service requirements? And you're at 100%, 104% this year. Your debt per capita, that's just taking your total bonded debt divided by your population. So 3,700 compared to 2,500 is in your peer group, so slightly higher there. Though your taxes per capita are lower compared to your peer group. So that just means a lot of your debt is funded through assessments and charging the residents that it's affecting, rather than just a straight levy. Current expenditures per capita, 847 compared to 674, so that's consistent what we were looking at in the general fund. Capital, this fluctuates based on the number of different projects you have going on, so not a lot going on this past year, so you're at 31 compared to the peers at 320. The last two here are the kind of show how old your assets are in their accounting life. So first one, your capital assets left to depreciate for governmental funds. This would be your streets and anything non-water sewer related or storm related. So you're at 66%. So if you had a street on the books that you think is going to last 20 years, if this percent was at 50%, you'd be halfway through its life. It'd be 10 years through its life. So a lot of things that we put on for their accounting life, they may last longer than that, but this just kind of gives you a general idea on how old your assets are compared to your peers, which yours are pretty close to your peers. Any questions on those? The rest of the management letter just kind of goes into some accounting standard changes that will be affecting some of the note disclosures going forward. Nothing as significant as the pension standard or some of the other standards that have required council action in the past, but I won't go through them, but they're there for you to read. So if no questions on that, if you want to open up the other book, I'll talk a little bit about the pensions and how that affected your report. If you turn to let's turn to page 68. So these pension standards added probably 6 pages to your notes to your financial statements. But you look on the bottom of that under letter D, pension costs. So you belong to basically 2 different pensions. It's both para, but one's the police and fire, and one is the general employees. On page 68, we talk about the general employees. So that first sentence under letter D, the city reported liability of $1.482 million. So of the $5 billion unfunded pension liability at the plan, the last sentence of this same paragraph shows that there was 0.0286% that was allocated to you. So you were required to report your almost $1.5 million as a liability on your books. And these are just on the government-wide statements, which are the full accrual statements. Those are the first 2 statements you see when you open up your financial statements. Those have capital assets on them as well as your bonds and whatever. But this is liability you really can't do anything about. It's going to change from year to year based on the allocation that they have together. That allocation is based on your contributions to the plan throughout the previous fiscal year. So this is going to change. It shouldn't change significantly each year, but it will change up and down as they calculate that liability. Then on the next page, the police and fire pension plan, which you contribute to the police plan, that has a $2.5 billion deficit approximately, and you were allocated $545,000 liability. So between the two, about a $2 million liability that was added to your books. And then on the last part of that paragraph, that was 0.048% of that plan. So, and again, that's going to change from year to year, but there's nothing you can't contribute more into the plan to reduce those liabilities, and at the same point, you're not going to have to come up with that money to fund it either, to pay this $2 million deficit out or liability out. So it's an accounting standard that was required, and again, it affected all governments in the country. So the page 70 or page 73. So you also have a fire relief pension plan that's associated with the city. So on page 73, that plan, the way it is funded the way the state requires it to be funded, actually generated a pension asset instead of that unfunded pension liability. So on page 73, and you had an actuary performed on the fire relief plan as well. So under letter D on page 73 there, that actually has about $120,000 pension or asset related to it. So that somewhat offsets your $2 million, but that's the other liability I guess in this case it was an asset that was recorded for that plan. So that's kind of GASB 68 in a nutshell. If you have any questions on that too, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Anybody else got anything for Brad tonight? Well, we appreciate all the hard work that you do. I know you guys come in year out to do the audit, and I know you guys would report if we had any issues. So it was good to see that the books are in order, and the city seems to be doing strong. So we'll keep moving forward. So we appreciate it. So with that, the chair will take a motion to accept and approve the 2015 city audit as presented.
So, go ahead. So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Merle, second by Lynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thanks,
All
Brad.
right, thank you.
That moves us on to reports this evening. And Mr. Maroney.
Two things. No business for the Planning Commission on Monday night, May 9th, so they will not be meeting Monday night. And second thing is, the property at 432 Mill Street has been purchased for the brewery, so that's good news. And we'll be moving forward with closing the EDA loan probably within the next 30 days or so for the equipment portion of that project. So that's a significant step forward on that project. It's taken a while to get here, but it's certainly a positive move.
Yep. Good job. Greg?
I don't have anything exciting as beer to talk about, but we did have the pre-construction meeting on the West Side project today. Thursday night here at Council Chambers, we've got the resident open house from 5 to 7. The contractor's gonna get started here over the next couple weeks, doing some removals, trees, getting the street ready. But the week of Memorial Day is when the real action will get started over there on the west side. They'll be working their way east to west, starting on Hoffman and then going up Hoffman and Mill, working their way towards Dow Street. But it'll take the balance of the summer. But that'll get started here the next few weeks. But again, that resident open house is this Thursday, 5 to 7 here.
They're tying the trees off tonight.
Thanks.
when I came down.
Tom?
Just like to remind you and the public that we lost our female swan last week. She passed away from old age, I guess you'd say. So we do have a lone male swan down there. At some time, I'd like you as a council to get feedback from the public as to where we go. Do we keep the male swan, keep that, or do we bring in a new pair, a mating pair? Cost of about $2,000 for the pair. And we ship the male out back to his owner. He's just on loan from a friend of the city. Other area, we do have the citywide cleanup day, May 21st, from 8 till noon. Take furniture, household junk, pretty much everything but brush, no paints, no liquids, nothing like that. Again, 8 to noon down at the wastewater treatment plant. Please bring your residency requirements of license. There's a slight discount for residents. As you can call, so look forward to handling your junk.
Okay. We look forward to bringing it down. And I did already hear from some residents, they miss the swans because they like to watch the babies when they're born, so. Chief?
I was not here last council meeting, but I understand there were some questions regarding the flow and water rate and stuff on the rivers. I did have a conversation with Dakota County just to kind of see where they're at in the refill process. As of yesterday, they were back up to their normal winter level for the reservoir, and now we'll be working to get to their summer level by, they're hoping the 15th, but that of course is dependent upon rain and that type of thing, but they expect by the end of the month to be up to their normal summer level. Once it reaches that, I think we'll start to see that we return to more of the traditional levels that we're used to seeing as far as the reservoir and the amount of water passing through.
Yeah, he was just concerned about the way they were going up and falling almost like a tidal flow instead of the regular flow that we usually get, and he's just worried about folks going down on canoes or kayaks.
And it sounds like most of the construction necessity for moving equipment across and stuff has ended. So I think some of that was probably contributable to that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks. Ron?
A couple things. We received an email from Senator Schmidt, or I received an email from Senator Schmidt that with the related to the capital investment, the Senate capital investment bill. Our sanitary sewer river bridge crossing is not going to be specifically funded. It's not listed as a line item, nor is the Highway 52 overpass. I'm guessing that the mayor will probably comment on that. He did say that the good news was that the bill provides funding for Minnesota's Public Facilities Authority and transportation accounts for competitive applications / awards. Both of those projects would qualify for funding, and I'm not sure what that means yet, but we'll keep our eyes open on that. He had some other good news, I guess, related to the metropolitan area, or we're excluded from the metropolitan area if we expand to the, well, I don't want to say expand, but do a project to the north. The other thing is as was reported at the last meeting, we had learned a new word called kerfuffle. I'd call it a MnDOT kerfuffle, that with their not informing us of their closing of the interchange, and they did, thankfully, hold a meeting here for the folks on last Friday, and did make the decision not to, after hearing a lot of comment, did decide not to do this project until after, I believe, don't shoot the messenger if I'm wrong, but until after the 86 and 52 project is over. And that's all I have.
Now? Merle?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Getting back to the Swans.
Yep.
I guess I would like to direct Tom to get the actual cost to replace for the two Swans and where you would get it from, and then make a recommendation to the city, because I also have heard comments, and I think it's always been a big draw with that park, along with the ducks and feeding them and everything, but that's kind of a thing for us. So I guess I would like to have what those actual costs would be, and where you would be getting them, and kind of the time frame, so that we could let the citizens know that. So I don't know if you want that as a motion, or if that could be just a direction.
Just direction so they can
Okay.
bring it up at the next council meeting. So we can look at moving forward with that.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have Mike come up, about, Marcia, you got anything, or are you gonna wait and go with Kathy?
How old are the swans going to be? So they don't decease.
That will be in his report.
Yeah, okay, good.
will be.
I'm assuming they'd be an acclimated pair, a breeding pair of breeding age of, I would think, a year.
Yeah, that'd be
You
good.
know, you don't want to get them too young and have something take them out, coyote or something, so.
Jay? Mike, you want to come up, report on the cable commission stuff? From listening to you earlier, I don't think it's what we want to hear, but if you can give us a report and we can keep moving from there.
Sounds good. I just want to mention too the digital transition that's going on. You maybe saw the notice in the newspaper that MediaCom is transitioning their whole system to an all-digital platform. So if you remember last year, they started the transition and they moved all the channels above channel 22 to digital only. So to get any of those channels, you needed to get a digital box. If you didn't already have digital cable from MediaCom, you had to get a box for each of your TVs. But you could still get on analog channels 2 through 22. And on June 21st, on or about, they're going to remove those remaining analog channels. So if there's viewers out there, MediaCom subscribers that don't yet have a cable box, they'll need to get one by then so that they don't lose their programming. MediaCom's providing free boxes for a year for that. So if you call the 800 number, MediaCom's 800 number, or go to their website, you can order your digital boxes, and they start charging you in June or July of next year for those. So as far as the franchise goes, the Cable Commission did meet last week and kind of went over the draft. We have kind of the most up-to-date draft of the franchise that we have, and it kind of comes down to 6 issues that remain that we're still negotiating. Three of them are kind of more legalese type issues that the lawyers are trying to decide what's required based on state and federal laws, and what kind of language needs to be there or doesn't. But the other three issues relate directly to our community access TV channel. And the three issues that we're pushing back with them on are the placement of our channel. Right now we have channel 12, which is nice and close to the other local channels. They proposed taking out the language that keeps it at channel 12, which would allow them to put it anywhere in their lineup that they want. So we're pushing back on that issue. The other issue is that we've requested one of our channels to be a high definition channel. And I think the city's position is just that's just keeping up with technology. This is a 10-year contract that we're agreeing to. So it's already the case that, you know, it already is starting to seem weird to watch standard definition television. So certainly 10 years from now, we feel that we need to be keeping up with that technology. So they don't have any language that relates to that right now. They're pushing back on that because of the cost, but you know, we feel that that's a requirement. And then the last issue is the live sites that we have for our channel. So right now we can go live, obviously tonight, from City Hall, from the ball field downtown, and then also from the high school. They've taken out language that relates to these live sites in their proposal. We're still, our lawyer is still clarifying what their position is on that, if that means that as soon as we sign this, they're not going to support those existing sites anymore, or if it means that they just are not going to upgrade them to digital, or we're not quite sure what their position is on that. But again, that's still a big part of our programming, and we're pushing back to be able to keep those live broadcast sites. So.
And Mike was saying that at the ball field and last fall, I remember the football games were just kind of horrid.
Yeah.
But mentioned how they jerry-rig and.
Yeah, the technicians, to their credit, you know, anytime I call them, they do their best to drive across the state to try to find any remaining equipment that might work with our system, just because it's all so out of date. So they really need to be upgraded, not just maintained. So that's one of our sticking points.
What do we gotta do to work on another franchise to get in here? Keep working. I know that's not what people really wanted to hear. Hopefully we can keep working with them, get the lawyers to keep pushing hard to get what we want. Because you know, a lot of people depend on that. And you know, especially our elderly people that can't always make it down to a football game or a basketball game, and they want to watch their grandkids play. It's a good place for people to watch them, and it provides a good quality of life for some of our citizens. So let's just keep pushing those guys, and we'll see if we can get some competition around here too.
So in regards to just your comment about competition, obviously the dish and all that is their competition. Is there a way to get another cable company interested in Cannon Falls, or do they own?
No.
I can't remember, do they
No.
own the rights to all
No.
the cabling?
No.
Mediacom owns all of their own cabling, so if another cable company wanted to come into town, they'd have to run their
Replace
own
all the cabling?
lines. So there's nothing in our existing franchise or in our proposed new franchise that we're working on that would make it an exclusive franchise. There's no reason why there couldn't be competition as far as cable companies in town. But usually what kind of limits that is how willing a separate company is to come in and run all their own lines.
Okay.
It
So
would
like
be,
a Comcast when,
yeah, it would be nice because then you get new equipment. Mediacom, according to this, and we spent a lot of time on, it's like they don't want to be.
20 years at least, so have we approached any other cable company to see if they would be interested in investing in Cannon Falls?
There's
Because we
a-
continue to grow, I'm just,
There is a company that's expressed interest, but I have not seen a letter of application yet.
can we push for pursual of that, just to see if they are really interested?
They're taking it under consideration.
We've been working to try to get that for a while, but hopefully they'll realize it if we approach them again, to see if we can
Well,
get it moving. I mean,
if
it-
we keep knocking at their door, maybe
Yeah.
they would take us a little more serious.
Yep. So I think maybe we just keep knocking, just like everything else. Anybody got anything else for Mike tonight?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. As Ron said, we got the email this weekend. I wasn't too happy, so I didn't respond back to the senator this weekend when Ron sent me that email, or I was included on it. It just seems like, we try to push and push to get things done, and it doesn't seem like some of our senators want to work for their own districts. So it's not over with yet. They still got 20 more days in session, so we'll see what happens. I mean, some things could end up in there that we don't know about yet. Stranger things have happened, so we'll keep pushing with them. I know the healthcare, cost of healthcare, that bill looks like it's going to move forward. They're working on trying to get that there. So what that is they're trying to see if we can get the regions realigned. It's going to take a federal waiver. So I know that looks like it's going to be going in. So, I mean, some of the stuff we've done is helping, but some of the other main projects that we really want to get it done, looks like we're being shunned a little bit by certain folks. So, but we're not going to be done yet. We're going to keep pushing and see what we can do. The other thing I've got, I just want to say congratulations to the Cannon Falls High School speech team. They're state champs this year, so great job out there, young folks. I hope it carries you a long way in the future. And other than that, I don't have anything, so if Chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.